Imagine living hundreds of years ago, in a world where eyeglasses simply did not exist. Today, if our eyesight becomes weak, we can visit an eye specialist, get a prescription, and put on glasses that make the world clear again. But for people in the past, there was no such simple solution. If their vision became blurry, they had to find ways to live and work with it. Imagine a scholar sitting at his desk, trying to read a handwritten manuscript. The words begin to blur. He moves the manuscript closer to his face. Then he moves it farther away. He brings a lamp closer, hoping that more light will help. But the real problem is not the darkness. His eyes simply cannot focus on the words as clearly as they once could. And this problem was not limited to scholars. A craftsman working on delicate objects needed to see tiny details clearly.
Artlist.io.
If his eyesight became weak, even a small mistake could ruin hours of work. There was no prescription lens he could simply put on.
Artlist.io.
He had to depend on better lighting, moving closer to his work, or simply accepting that some tasks were becoming harder. A traveler faced a different problem. From a distance, a landmark, a road, or even another person could become difficult to recognize. A hunter could struggle to identify something far away. For an older person, reading, working, and recognizing distant objects could become increasingly difficult. Today, weak eyesight may feel like a small inconvenience. But before glasses, there was no simple technology waiting to correct it. And that created an important question: could something be invented that would actually help the human eye see more clearly?
Artlist.io.
For a scribe, poor eyesight could become even more serious. His entire profession depended on his ability to read tiny letters and copy them accurately onto another piece of parchment. Day after day, he would sit for hours, carefully copying manuscripts by hand. But imagine what happened when his eyesight began to deteriorate. The letters that once looked sharp slowly became difficult to distinguish. He would lean closer to the manuscript, trying to separate one letter from another. His writing could become slower. Mistakes could become more frequent. And eventually, something as simple as reading a page could require enormous effort. For someone whose livelihood depended on reading and writing, losing clear vision was not simply an inconvenience. It could threaten the very work that supported his life. But humans rarely stop at a problem. They begin looking for clues. And one of those clues was hiding in something they could already observe around them: the strange way light behaved when it passed through transparent materials. Before anyone could make spectacles, people had to find simple ways to deal with poor eyesight. If a manuscript was difficult to read, they could hold it closer to the eyes, or move it farther away until the letters became slightly clearer. More light could also help. A person might move an oil lamp closer to the work, hoping that brighter illumination would make the tiny details easier to see. But these methods could only help so much. More light could brighten the page, but it could not change the way the eye focused the image. And moving an object closer or farther away only worked within certain limits. So people could manage the problem, but they could not truly correct it. The real breakthrough would require something different. Instead of changing the distance or adding more light, what if humans could change the path of light itself? That question would eventually lead to one of the most important ideas in the history of optics. But the search for a solution had already begun in another way. Long before anyone could make a pair of spectacles, people had noticed something strange about certain pieces of transparent material. When a curved piece of glass was placed over small objects or writing, the objects could appear larger. A tiny detail that was difficult to see with the naked eye could suddenly become much easier to examine. At first, this was not a solution for poor eyesight. It was simply an interesting optical effect. but it revealed something extremely important.
Artlist.io.
Glass was not just something people could look through. It could actually change the way light traveled into our eyes, and in doing so, change how we saw the world. This simple observation would become one of the earliest clues on the long road towards spectacles. But magnification was only the beginning. The real mystery was not simply why objects looked bigger. It was understanding what the glass was doing to light.
Music licensing
When light
reimagined.
passes from one material into another, its path can change. This is called refraction. A curved lens can use this effect to bend incoming light in a controlled way. And that discovery was incredibly important. Because the human eye also works by focusing light. If a lens could change the path of light before it entered the eye, perhaps it could help the eye form a clearer image. This was the basic idea that would eventually make vision correction possible. But understanding the principle was one thing. Turning that knowledge into a practical device for human vision would take much longer. But understanding light was not only about glass. People also needed to understand the human eye itself. One of the most important figures in this history was the Muslim scholar Ibn al-Haytham, who lived around 1,000 years ago. At a time when many ideas about vision were based on assumptions, he approached the subject differently. He studied how light travels, how it enters the eye, and how vision is connected to light. Through experiments and careful observation, he challenged earlier ideas about how we see. His work helped establish a more scientific approach to the study of optics. And this was a crucial step. Because before humans could build a device to correct vision, they first needed to understand the relationship between light, the eye, and the image we see. But even with this growing knowledge, the first practical spectacles were still centuries away. So when did humans finally turn this growing knowledge of optics into something they could actually wear? The answer takes us to Italy in the late 13th century. Around this time, the first known spectacles began to appear. They were incredibly simple compared with the glasses we use today. There were no comfortable frames sitting behind the ears, no lightweight materials, and no precisely measured prescriptions. Instead, early spectacles used two simple lenses held in front of the eyes. It was a small invention, but its potential was enormous. For the first time, a person struggling to see could place a specially shaped lens in front of the eyes and see more clearly. After centuries of studying light and vision, an idea had finally become something people could actually use. But the first spectacles were far from perfect. They were a remarkable invention, but they were still crude, uncomfortable, and difficult to use. The lenses were not made with the precision we expect today. There were no standardized prescriptions, so finding the right lens for a person's particular eyesight was extremely difficult. And the frames were another problem. Early spectacles had no comfortable arms resting behind the ears. They could be held in front of the face, balanced on the nose, or attached in simple ways that were nowhere near as convenient as modern glasses. Imagine trying to read an entire manuscript while constantly worrying about keeping your glasses in the right position. So the invention had solved one major problem, but created several new ones. The idea worked. Now humans had to figure out how to make it practical. The invention of spectacles was only the beginning. Once people realized that shaped glass could improve vision, the next challenge was making that idea more practical. Different people had different eyesight problems. Some could see distant objects clearly but struggled to read things up close. Others had the opposite problem. So one lens could not work perfectly for everyone. Over time, craftsmen began experimenting with different shapes and strengths of lenses. They learned that even small changes in the curve of a lens could change the way it affected light. This was a slow process. There were no modern eye examinations, precision
Artlist.io.
machines, or computerized measurements. Every improvement depended on careful craftsmanship, observation, and repeated trial and error.
Artlist.io.
What looks like a simple pair of glasses today was becoming the result of centuries of experimentation. But improving the lenses was only half the challenge. People also needed a better way to keep them in front of the eyes. The earliest designs were awkward.
Music
They could slip
licensing
down the nose,
reimagined.
fall away from the face, or require one hand to hold them in place. So craftsmen began experimenting with ways to connect and support the lenses. Simple frames gradually appeared. Some designs were held directly on the nose. Others were attached to the face in different ways. Eventually, the idea of placing the lenses into a structure that could stay in position became much more practical.
Artlist.io.
It may sound like a small improvement, but this was an important turning point. The invention was no longer just about making
Artlist.io.
glass that could improve vision. It was becoming a wearable tool that people could actually use in everyday life. As the basic design improved, spectacles slowly became easier to use. Craftsmen learned that the shape of the lenses mattered. They also discovered
Music
that the way the
licensing
lenses were positioned in
reimagined.
front of the eyes could affect how clearly a person could see. But there was still a major limitation. These early spectacles were not designed for everyone. They were mainly useful for people who had difficulty seeing things up close, especially when reading. And because there were no modern eye tests, choosing the right lenses was still largely a matter of trial and error. Even so, the idea was spreading.
Artlist.io.
What had once been an experimental optical device was gradually becoming a useful tool for everyday life. And over the centuries,
Artlist.io.
both the lenses and the frames would continue to evolve. As spectacles became more useful, the idea began to spread beyond the places where they first appeared. Over the following centuries, spectacles reached other parts of Europe and gradually became more common among scholars,
Music
merchants,
licensing
craftsmen,
reimagined.
and people who depended on reading. But they still looked very different from the glasses we know today. Some were designed to sit directly on the nose. Others were held in place with simple supports. The lenses were often handmade, so no two pairs were exactly the same. Yet their importance was growing. A person who once had to give up reading because of poor eyesight could now continue working with the help of a simple
Artlist.io.
piece of shaped glass. It was a small invention that quietly changed everyday life. And as more people began using spectacles,
Artlist.io.
there was a new question: could they be made more comfortable and secure? The next major challenge was comfort. A pair of lenses might help someone see, but if those lenses kept slipping off the nose, they were difficult to use for long periods. So craftsmen
Music
continued
licensing
experimenting with
reimagined.
different ways to hold the lenses securely. Over time, more practical frames began to appear. Some designs used simple supports around the nose. Others gradually developed structures that made the lenses easier to keep in position. The changes were slow, and there was no single moment when modern glasses suddenly appeared. Instead, the design evolved step by step, with each generation
Artlist.io.
improving on what came before. What started as two pieces of shaped glass was slowly becoming the familiar form of an everyday pair of spectacles.
Artlist.io. Music licensing
As
reimagined.
spectacles became more practical, their usefulness went far beyond the study. They could help merchants read documents, craftsmen examine detailed work, and scholars continue reading for longer periods. For older people especially, this could make an enormous difference. A task that once became difficult or impossible because of poor eyesight could now be continued with the help of a simple optical device.
Artlist.io.
And that is what makes the history of spectacles so fascinating. The invention itself was small. Just pieces of shaped glass placed in front of the eyes. But the story of spectacles was far from finished. Was much bigger. For hundreds of years, keep working craftsmen continued improving the lenses and learning experimenting with different shapes, materials, and ways of holding them centuries earlier as a strange experiment with glass was becoming an ordinary part of everyday life. Each improvement solved a small problem.
Reimagined.
A better lens made vision clearer. A better frame made the glasses easier to wear. And better craftsmanship made them more reliable. By the time spectacles became widely accepted, they were no longer seen as a strange optical experiment. They had become a practical invention that could change the daily life of ordinary people. And yet, compared with the glasses we use today, there was still a very long journey ahead. Then came a new era. As science, manufacturing, and glass-making advanced, spectacles began changing faster than ever before. Lenses could be produced with greater consistency. Frames became lighter, stronger, and more comfortable. And instead of making every pair almost entirely by hand, new manufacturing methods allowed spectacles to be produced on a much larger scale. This changed everything. Glasses were no longer something unusual that only a limited number of people could obtain. They were becoming an everyday product. The simple optical idea that had started with shaped pieces of glass was now turning into a modern industry. The 20th century brought another major transformation. Spectacles were no longer limited to simple glass lenses and heavy handmade frames. New materials made lenses lighter and more durable, while new manufacturing techniques allowed them to be shaped with much greater precision. Plastic lenses became widely available, and frames could be made from lightweight plastics and metals. For the first time, glasses could be designed not only to correct vision, but also to be comfortable, durable, and even stylish. The basic principle had not changed.
Reimagined.
Light still had to be guided correctly into the eye. But the technology surrounding that simple idea had changed dramatically. A device that once took skilled craftsmen enormous effort to create could now be produced accurately and on a massive scale. Today, the technology behind spectacles is almost unrecognizable compared with those first handmade lenses. Modern lenses can be carefully designed for the exact vision needs of an individual. They can be made thinner, lighter, and more resistant to scratches. Some lenses can even change their tint when exposed to sunlight. And modern frames can be made from materials that are light, strong, and comfortable enough to wear all day. Yet the basic idea remains remarkably simple. A carefully shaped lens changes the path of light before it reaches the eye. That simple principle connects us directly to the earliest experiments with glass, more than 700 years ago. What once required enormous patience and craftsmanship can now be produced with incredible precision. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of the story. Today, we can pick up a pair of glasses almost without thinking about it. They may sit on a shop shelf, in a drawer, or on our face every single day. But centuries ago, the ability to see clearly through a simple lens was not an ordinary convenience. It was the result of generations of observation, experimentation, craftsmanship, and patience. Think about that the next time you put on your glasses. Something that feels completely ordinary today began as a difficult problem that humans spent centuries trying to solve. From a crude piece of shaped glass to the precise lenses we use today, the journey of spectacles is a reminder that many of the simplest things in our lives have extraordinary histories.